Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the New York Film Academy. My name is Crickett Rumley, and I am the Senior Director of the Film Festival Department at NYFA. I am so excited tonight to have with us Rudi Womack. Let's give him a round of applause. He is an editor. He is an indie filmmaker with 2 features under his belt and multiple shorts, so many that he's forgotten how many. And he's also a film festival director. And we had kind of known of each other a while ago, like pre-COVID, which, you know, dark ages. And then this thing happened, it was last fall, right?
Yeah.
I think it was last fall, where I started hearing on my film festival programmer and director boards that somebody had written a really amazing Reddit about film festivals. And so I started doing some research, and I figured out it was the Wyoming International Film Festival. That part wasn't hard. Then I figured out who it was, and then I realized I knew him, and then I realized he was a NYFA alum. And so I went back to all my friends, and I was like, that's a NYFA alum who wrote that amazing Reddit. So we went and had like a 4-hour coffee.
Yeah, we had a cup of coffee.
We had a lot of coffee. And we talked about festival strategy, and so we wanted to bring to the table to you all, to our NYFA alumni and students, and to our larger NYFA community, we wanted to bring you some of the important details that we talked about. And one of the things that I think is really important is that today's festival run is not the same as the festival run from 5 years ago, and certainly not the same as what we were doing when I was in film school in the last millennium. So, that is so true, y'all. It was the last millennium. Can we start with why film festivals? What do they do for new and emerging filmmakers, and are they still relevant?
Fantastic question. Why should you go to a film festival? Are they relevant?
Are they relevant?
Well, we always fall back on film festivals are a tool. And like every other tool, some tools are great for the job that you have, and some tools are completely useless for the job that you have. If you have a film, and your goal with that film is to get a bunch of views on it, absolutely skip festivals, go straight onto the internet. You should. Why not? If that's what your goal is. But if your goal is to network, if it's to make connections, if it's to genuinely build an audience, not people who are just clicking through on YouTube or bots that hit it a couple of times over, but actually sit in a theater with their phones off, with their eyes on the big screen, and actually connect with a film, absolutely film festivals are vital. Film festivals are the greatest networking tool that filmmakers have. Now, most of the people in this room obviously are students, and right now you don't really understand how valuable it is being a student, being elbow to elbow with your classmates every single day, day in and day out, because guess what? I still work with a lot of my classmates 10 years later, all right? But many of the connections that I make at film festivals, not only do they turn into good friends, but they also turn into colleagues. Colleagues who call me up and say, hey, Rudi, I got something. Are you free right now? And I say, well, yeah, for you, of course I am. That turns into job prospects. Film festivals lead to more work. Sometimes that's another film. Sometimes that's a collaboration with other filmmakers. And sometimes that means your name gets passed on down the line, down the line, down the line. Suddenly someone's in your email that you've never met before and they're offering you a job. It happens all the time.
It really does. And I like to say to everyone that this may sound really weird, but like your big goal in life is to have a room full of strangers watch your film. That's your goal. We want to get our art out there to bigger audiences, and so we need to go find those audiences. And a quick aside, we've had several really powerful influencers come to school here. And whenever we do, I ask them, like, why are you here? Why are you having a strategy consultation with me when you have like 1.5 million followers on Instagram? And every single time the answer is, because I want to be a filmmaker. I want to be in those circles. I want to be seen as a writer director. And so it gets back to what you said from the beginning about goals. Like, what is your actual goal?
A lot of filmmakers get frustrated with festivals, and deservedly so. Festivals can really put filmmakers through the ringer, and it really beats them down. But the problem that a lot of filmmakers, unintentionally, they make a mistake when they go out to film festivals. They just start submitting left and right, okay? We call that the shotgun blast technique. You just shoot it out there in the world and hope something sticks. Not exactly the best way of doing things. We always say, instead of trying to figure out if this festival's legit or if that festival's good or this one or that one, that's the wrong approach. We always say, first, take a long, hard look at yourself in the mirror. Give yourself some affirmation.
Not at your film. Look at yourself.
Yes. And ask, what is the goal with this film? You've already heard me say this. You're going to hear me say it a million more times, guys. So you don't even need to write this down. It's going to be beaten to your head by the end of the night, okay? What is the goal with your film? Now, I presume most of you are doing short narrative films, yeah? Yeah.
There are a couple of people in the feature track, but yes, for the most part, short narrative.
Okay.
Some doc.
All right. Couple of docs, couple of features, but predominantly, Lord only knows what all of y'all there on Zoom are doing right now. But let's talk short narrative film as an example for right now. A common tactic that filmmakers will do with a short narrative film is they use it as a proof of concept to get funding to go make a feature, right?
Is that a good idea or a bad idea, Rudy?
Worked for Damien Chazelle. All right. Yeah, precisely. It's worked for a lot of filmmakers. There's a teacher at NYFA, Will Dickerson, who did a short film and turned that into a feature by taking it to festivals. It's a very common tactic, so let's use that as an example. That's your goal. You have a short film, it's a proof of concept, you want to turn it into a feature film. Wonderful. Now you start looking at festivals that would facilitate that goal. So you're going to be looking at festivals that you have producers in attendance, financiers, festivals that have markets attached to them. Palm Springs is a wonderful example of such a film festival. Or if you're going to go a little bit more of the indie do-it-yourself route, you might want to get festivals that have a lot of press. So you mentioned you have influencers sometimes as students. Having a lot of press is very good for those types of people because it helps them stay relevant, it helps them build their audience. So depends on what your strategy is with that, but it's always good to have your goal right there in front of you. I want to turn my short proof of concept into a feature film. You will then start to target festivals that can help you towards that goal. Then you take a look at what your film is. Is it a drama? Is it a comedy? Is it a horror? Is it a sci-fi or even a short doc? Sometimes that happens as well. Then you can start narrowing down by genre or type or style from the film festivals that you have already narrowed down. So then you start getting down to the nitty-gritty where you're looking at maybe 15 or 10 festivals that look more ideal. And these are more targeted. So you can start sending your film specifically to those festivals. And the best part is, since you've done your research, since you've done your homework, you can also write in your cover letter as you submit to a film festival why you are submitting to them specifically and what your goal is. And that ingratiates yourself to those guys. It truly does. And then you have a better chance of getting in.
It really is about strategy and looking at like, who am I? What is my film about? I always think that it's important to think about who your audience is going to be. And for producers, this is a question that you're asked all the time, right? Like, who's our audience? Who's our audience? That being said, everyone, whether you're an actor or a DP, you want to think about which festivals are going to be a good match for me and my film. And I want to say something about the proof of concept. First of all, shout out to Amani Davis at Proof of Concept Film Festival. They launched this last year, and it's an amazing festival. Really, really impressed me.
I met her at that programming meeting that you invited me to.
Yes,
Yeah, that was
that was a really, really great festival, great event. So proof of concept, just want to go on the record as saying it is really challenging to do well because a lot of people are trying to take a feature idea and shove it into a short, and that's not really going to work. So if you're planning to submit a short film as a proof of concept, the short still needs to work in and of itself. Otherwise, it just may sort of miss the boat. I've seen this a lot of times, sadly. But like, let's talk about, how do you research festivals? Like, when you say do your research, what do you mean?
Great question. First off, I'd actually like you all to do me a quick favor. You are going to hear me tonight say something along the lines of every film festival is different. Anytime you hear me say that, I want you guys to yell out, do your research.
Can we practice that?
So let's practice. Let's give it a shot. Why not? Here we go. Every festival is different. Do your research. Okay, we can do better.
That is not loud enough.
Take two. Take two. Every festival is unique. Almost there, third time's the charm. Every festival is looking for something different. Do your research. There we go.
Exactly.
There we go. So what does do your research mean? Again, it goes back to whatever your goal is, okay? So once you identify what your goal is, I want to go to a festival that has a lot of press, okay? Well, I'm actually going to tell you to don't start your research at film festivals or Film Freeway. I'm going to tell you to start your research at Hollywood Reporter or Deadline or any of those guys and start looking at what festivals are they reporting on. Or Movie Maker Magazine, that's another really good one where there's a lot of press. If you are a local filmmaker to a specific region or state or city or something like that, you can start looking into your local film festival and see, do they have press? Are the press coming and reporting to them? I met you earlier. You're from Kansas City. Lanita Cook. Shout out to her. She's an incredible...
Shout out to Lanita Cook.
She is a journalist that reports on films.
Based out of Kansas City.
Based out of Kansas City. That was relevant to a conversation that was off screen. Sorry for everybody on Zoom.
I'm here to just supply additional details.
When you start doing your research, you are also looking for what other things does the film festival do or provide or facilitate. So some festivals have networking events and parties. In fact, a lot of festivals have networking events and parties. That's fantastic. That's where you go and shake hands and exchange business cards and tell each other how good they are at making movies. But sometimes that's where you get your work. In fact, I'd say that's probably the most valuable part of a film festival. Other film festivals will take you on tours. So if you like to travel and if you like to explore a region, if you like to learn something new about the city that you're in or visiting, the Wyoming International Film Festival, we take all of our filmmakers to a bison ranch where you get to feed bison. That's not something you can do in LA.
Not yet.
Not yet, not yet. And then, of course, some festivals will have panels with professionals. That's actually what Crickett's job is at Tallgrass, is to facilitate that, where you can go and hear professionals speak and discuss different aspects and areas of the industry and where you can learn. And of course, some festivals have markets. These things are literally where people go to buy and sell movies. That's an incredibly valuable experience. So as you research, you can start looking into how the festival is set up, what ancillary events that it might have, and then you can also start to get a vibe of what the festival programs. So you start looking into what films has it programmed in the past. So obviously, a horror-centered film festival is going to have a lot of horror films. But let's say very specifically, you have a body horror film. All right? Mm-hmm. Take a look and see, have they programmed films like that before? Because if they have not, you might want to consider whether or not you want to submit your film to that. When you have a general film festival like the Wyoming International Film Festival, we screen it all. We have horrors, and we have children's films, and everything in between. Never in the same block. Yeah, very good. When you start looking into general film festivals, it can be a little bit confusing about what their particular style or taste is. So you kind of really have to do a lot more research into what specific films they are programming. For instance, the Wyoming International Film Festival, every single year we have a block called Connections, which is about friends, family, love, and loss. So that is a very specific thing. But then we have transient blocks. Last year we had a block about mental health, but the previous year we did not. So it can also change a little bit from year to year.
It really can, and
Yes.
that's where I think there are a lot of conversations that are happening at festivals with and among their programmers, their programming team, the executive director, about how they're programming and what is in the zeitgeist this year
Yes.
and what they may be focusing on this year. So even with the best research possible, we can't exactly know what's going to hit where. And this is maybe too early in the process to talk about rejection. We'll get to rejection later.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Spoiler, there's going to be rejection, and we're going to deal with it. But I feel like that's really great advice about looking at what a festival has programmed.
Yep.
And, you know, one of the things that happens at NYFA when we go through and we figure out what your strategy is, especially if there's a regional strategy or if someone is from an area of the world where we're going to have like Indian or South Asian festivals or Asian American festivals. Like, what does Asian American mean? Often it means something different from the continent of Asia, right? So we have to do a deep dive into like, how are we defining Asia? How is this festival rather defining Asia? Just to make sure that your film is part of what they're trying to represent.
Absolutely. Obviously, there are a lot of film festivals that are dedicated not to genres, but to certain demographics or groups of people. So to your point, there are Asian American film festivals. There are Jewish film festivals. Years ago, I had a film, my composer was Polish, and because of that, it got into the LA Polish Film Festival.
That's amazing.
Even though it had
Love that.
nothing to do with Poland or Polish culture. So if you come from a specific demographic that certain festivals are looking for, absolutely lean into it, go for it. I don't want to surprise anybody here, but the Wyoming International Film Festival probably screens the most Wyoming films of any festival on earth. All right, so local festival screens local films should not be headline news for anybody.
Should not be headline news.
I have a question. How many people here in the audience tonight are international students? Quite a number of you.
Yes.
All right. You guys have a very interesting, unique opportunity because you are still local back home, but you are making a film a world away. Mm-hmm. And I'll bet you none of the local filmmakers back home are making films in LA and taking them back home. So you would stand out in your local festivals or your regional festivals, wherever it is that you call home. So lean into it, guys. Absolutely lean into it.
And the reverse of that is something that I love about when our filmmakers go back to their country to shoot. I have seen things in my computer, places that I'm like, I did not know this existed on the planet, and it's so exciting to see. And I know that festivals around the world will be interested in what this film is about. So you can also lean into, if you want to make something that is distinctly of your country or of your region, that can be as fresh and exciting. So it's really interesting because there's such a wide variety of options of festivals and storytelling as well.
I mean, to that point, I had the privilege last year of being a jury member at the Fair Film Festival, which is in Ferizaj, Kosovo. which
Wow.
not many people know where Kosovo is. It's in the Balkans region in Europe, in kind of southeastern Europe.
Yeah.
So first off, it was really cool that they invited some guy from Wyoming to be a jury member there. I was like, me? There's 8 billion people on Earth, and you landed. Thanks.
That sounds amazing.
But it is interesting that you go to a place and what you consider the norm is suddenly exotic. So for me, I come from a place with a cowboy on our license plate, so I don't really think twice about cowboys. But for them, that's really cool. We have this American filmmaker who's from like cowboy country and everything, and I'm like, oh, I forgot my spurs on the plane, but.
Do you wear a hat?
I really
You
should have. I
should.
should have leaned into
Dress
that
the
hard.
part,
I
the
should
boots and the
have. I should have
hat.
shown up in chaps and everything.
Okay, that's pushing it a little too far.
But to that extent, if you do come, wherever you come from on Earth is going to be unique to somebody else. So that is also an advantage that you have when you look to international films or films far outside of your immediate region and you start submitting to those types of films. The Wyoming International Film Festival is an international film festival. We want a good cross-section of the entire world. When we start programming, we consider that, and we set aside a large portion of our programming for documentaries and narrative film from all over the world because we want to have that kind of representation at our film festival. It's good for filmmakers all over, and it's good for our audience. It's a cultural event that they get to experience from the comfort of their own town.
Absolutely. You know, you bring up so many great points, and I do want to get back to strategy.
Yep.
But can we look at this from the festival side for a minute? And like, I get this question, what are film festivals looking for all the time? And one of the first things I think is, well, they're not all alike. So
do your research.
Exactly. and so that when I get asked that general question, I'm like, how long do you have? We'll talk. But in general, if you were going to like narrow it down to a few important things, what advice would you give to new and emerging filmmakers?
Okay, so obviously a very general question. What we're looking for in a comedy film is very different than what we're looking for in a documentary, obviously. I would say out of everything that we tend to enjoy is concise. Most people understand concise as short, but as she introduced you at the beginning, I am a professional editor. And one of the cool things about being an editor, we have this saying, a good editor knows when to cut, a great editor knows when not to cut. Concise doesn't just mean short. It means to the point. What did Shakespeare say? Brevity is the soul of wit, right? So there is this thing, and I've heard this from festival people as well, so take my advice with a grain of salt here, but there is this thing of a short film should never be more than 15 minutes. I respectfully disagree because I have seen plenty of 15-minute shorts that could have been 7 minutes.
Yep.
All right? But I have also seen plenty of 30-minute long shorts that just knocked my socks off.
They were riveting.
They were phenomenal because they were concise. Even though they were 30 minutes long, I'm not looking at the runtime. I'm enveloped into the story. I'm pulled into it. So the most broad, general advice that I can give for everybody who's doing music videos all the way up to feature films, make your project as concise and to the point as possible. It starts in the script, it continues on set, and it wraps up in post. You should always be looking to make it more concise. Make 2 shots into 1 if you can. It's pacing
at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day.
And again, every film is different. All right. So a I don't know, Guy Ritchie film is going to be paced very different than a Terrence Malick film, right?
Right. Definitely.
And so it's about that emotion. It's about how effective it is. It's all of those things. But even then, I still say Terrence Malick, he's known for making long films, but they're still concise. They still bring forth an emotion. There's still a point to everything.
Yeah. You know, when I work with our students and alumni here, I never read the title or the log line. I just look at the total running time. And then I watch the film because I want to have a very, very fresh perspective, right? And if a film is over 15 minutes, I'm like, all right, show me what you got. If a film is over 20 minutes, I have a great fear in my heart. And the reason for that is that the festivals, for the most part, are screening, programming in 90-minute blocks or so, 90 to 100 minutes.
Yep.
And so generally speaking, there's not a lot of room for films over 15 minutes, right? That's from just their logistical point of view. That doesn't mean that a 30-minute film won't get programmed. It just makes it significantly harder. And one of the what ended up being the most successful film during COVID was 25 minutes long. It took that filmmaker a year to get into her first film festival. And so it's a serious consideration.
Yes.
Anytime you can cut and still the story holds up, it's really important.
So many film festivals, when they look at runtime, they will have this consideration. Let's say you have a 20-minute film and it's good, but there's two 10-minute films that are also good. They're going to take the two that are, so your 20-minute film can't be good. It has to be great. It has to be so good we can't ignore it. Now, on Reddit, we did release statistics from our festival of how many films we programmed, how many films we received, how many rejections, how many we accepted, so on and so forth. And we did a breakdown of time, like 0 to 5 minutes, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, so on and so forth. Obviously, we programmed, I don't know, maybe 10 films that are over 20 minutes long, something like that. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it is published out there. You can go find it. Obviously, we had a lot more films in the 5 to 10 minute range. I mean, that's just math, right? That's just going to happen.
One student who may be here wrote me today and said, while shooting a film that you want to submit to festivals, what do you do differently to ensure it's good enough for submission? Like, are there any key things to include?
Like during production?
During production.
During production.
Who wrote me that? Are they here? No? All right, you're not in trouble, don't worry.
We will find you.
I really thought about this. I really thought about it. And then Rudi and I talked about it when he first arrived. I think it's a really interesting question.
So anything that's happening on set starts in pre-production, right? So it goes back to script and it goes back to make it as concise as possible.
Yeah.
When you are on set, it's also a matter of shooting deliberately. I'm certain that your teachers have drilled into your heads, you know, plan, pre-pro, pre-pro, and then you get on set and everything goes to hell real fast, right?
It happens.
It happens, right? And it's learning how to kind of roll with the punches, adapt to changing circumstances, and it's all about making shots as concise as possible. We had a filmmaker at the festival last year. He was from Spain. And he flew out from Spain to Wyoming, and his film was a sci-fi, and we were shocked to learn it was actually a 48-hour film. So it's one of those, they get a prompt where they have to use a prop and a line of dialogue and so on and so forth, and they have 48 hours to make a film. And the film was phenomenal. It was really, really good, and it was a science fiction. But talking with him, I kind of asked him some questions about how did you plan, because when you only have 48 hours to make a film, time is your enemy. And he said every single scene, I didn't even notice it until I went back and rewatched the film, every single scene is only one shot, and it's on sticks. Everything is locked off and on sticks. There you go. So he didn't have to worry about camera movements or switching lights or anything like that. Every single scene is just camera on sticks, shoot the thing. As soon as they get 2 or 3 takes in the can, they move on to the next thing. Very simplistic, all right? But that simplicity came from necessity.
It was appropriate for the amount of time that they had.
Precisely.
And it happened to match the genre and the vibe and the feeling.
And in leaning into their limitations, they made a successful film, and that film is played at a ton of festivals.
My mom was a visual artist and an original recycler. Like she wasn't a hoarder, y'all, but she saved everything. And then you'd find it in a tapestry, or you'd find it, like she'd make me a dress and there would be this thing that she saved 10 years ago. But it's really interesting because I do think that the limitations are actually a blessing.
Yes.
And because they make you think outside the box. So if you're told that you only get 15 minutes for your intermediate film, that is a blessing, and something that you should be able to work with and through. And if you're concerned about the equipment or what have you that you're getting for a project, like I say lean into it and do the best you can, because no matter how big the budget of the film is, there are always going to be limitations. Even if you have $300 million, there's going to be somebody with a limitation somewhere.
And sometimes those limitations are practical. I mean, speaking again as an editor, if they tell me, hey, make this TV spot, it's 30 seconds. It's to the frame. It's not 29 seconds and 23 frames. It is exactly 30 seconds every single time. So you learn that it doesn't matter what you're doing, there's always some limitation. There's a budget limitation, a time limitation, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how many millions of dollars you get.
There's going to be a limitation. I did, after thinking about this question, I realized that there's something that I wanted to share, which is something I've seen happen over the years with different films, sometimes the same filmmaker, but especially in early films, there may not be enough coverage of the climactic sequence of the film. And I've seen that several different times, or where a critical POV shot was not available, or you needed more of the expression of the main character. And so I would like to put a plug out there for really making sure that you get the amount of coverage you need to really impact your audience's emotions. Because if you're cutting too fast through something, we might not have enough visual information to really feel. And that can work the opposite way too, right? Where it's like, oh, that just went too long. We're getting the same information repeated longer than we need for it to be repeated. So be aware of that. I've had to take a couple of students aside and say, look, we can send this to festivals, but I really think you need to reshoot your climax or get another shot in there or something before you start submitting.
We have a programming team of somewhere between 20 and 25 people. It kind of varies. The most common programming note that I read is they need to do another pass on the edit.
Interesting.
And that's usually before it gets to me. And of course, I look at everything through the lens of editing. So it's so common that I would say it just needs to be said. Filmmakers, doesn't matter if you're students or if you're listening on Zoom and if you've been doing this professionally for 20 years, go take another look at your edit. Just do it. It's fine. It's not going to hurt you. All right? See if you can't trim. See if you can't explore some other opportunities. That's the wonderful thing. We now work digital. We're not actually splicing together film. It's an NLE. You can just duplicate a timeline and go bananas with it. So sometimes you make discoveries that way. Try it out.
It really, really is painful to spend 9 months or so submitting to festivals and not getting in.
Yes. When
you've already gotten the note that your film should be shorter. Just trust me, that is not fun. You will not enjoy that. Sorry. Can we go back to, you mentioned that you watched the films. You mentioned that you had a staff of thousands.
Thousands.
Okay, maybe not thousands. So, Rudi, a lot of times filmmakers say, do people even watch the films that get submitted? So do they?
I get this question all the time. I blame Vimeo, frankly.
I know. You can't believe those Vimeo numbers. Where's Udi? Udi and I did this one time, where your film was on Vimeo and I was watching it like multiple times and it wouldn't show the count. Yeah.
First off, before we get into that, guys, general advice in life, get zen. all right?
Get
There's just
zen.
certain things you can't control, right? We can't control the weather. It was flooding and mudslides and earthquakes and all these other
weeks
terrible
ago.
things. We just had to move the date, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, there's certain things you can't control. You cannot control if you submit your film to a festival, you've done all your homework and your research, and you found the perfect festival and you submitted it, and the programmer watches it, and guess what? He had a fight with his girlfriend last night, and guess what your film's about? All right, you don't know if it's the 20th movie they've watched that day or the first movie they've watched that day. You don't know if they're just trying to squeeze in watching a short film on their lunch break, or if they're like sitting down dedicated, they're gonna watch it all the way through. Are they watching on a laptop in a hotel room somewhere or on a big screen TV? You cannot control these things, so stop obsessing over them. You're just gonna kill yourself doing it. You really will. Do film festivals watch films? I've seen things online that's like definitive proof Sundance doesn't watch films, but I've also talked with a ton of Sundance programmers, and they're only ever talking about the movies they're watching.
Yeah.
So there seems to be this disconnect between festivals and filmmakers, and there's this distrust, let's just bluntly call it distrust, of festivals, because so many of them are actually money grab scams, that filmmakers have become wary whether or not festivals are actually watching the movies. The only assurance I can give you in all this, beyond doing your research and seeing, do they program films? Are those films connected somehow? Or are they just accepting everything that's submitted to them? The only assurance that I can give you in all of this is my programming team is like tapping out right now. They're like, we're done. Please stop sending us films. That's how many films these guys are watching. They're watching upwards of 30 and 40 hours of movies.
And that is actually something that you can do, y'all, is volunteer for festivals and screen films. We've got, talk to me later if you want some opportunities. I've got a couple that are going on right now.
On that note, film school taught me what to do. Film festivals taught me what not to do. I have now worked at 4 different festivals. I have watched a lot of submissions. And you start to see some common mistakes made again and again and again in story, in structure, in editorial, in pacing, in acting, in directing, in cinematography. You name it, you start to see things. Film school teaches you how to make a film. But programming at a film festival, that is where you actually get to see it in practice, in motion, people out there making films. And I am never going to disparage filmmakers because damn, it's hard to make a film. But let's be real, we all make mistakes. I made 100,000 bad films before I made my first good one, right? And that's perfectly fine. But you learn that way. And you also learn by watching other people's work.
I think this is so important, y'all, that you're at film school. Those of you, most of you who are here are at film school, and the only way you learn to make a film is to make a film.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the only way. And so some schools don't let you even submit films the first year that you're at school. So just let yourself grow. Let yourself grow and be zen. In a few minutes, we're going to start taking questions from the audience. And right behind my friend right here is a mic standing right there. Yes, thank you. So if you want to ask a question, you need to go to the mic so that our audience at home and on Zoom can hear. But that's going to be in a few minutes, just preparing y'all. Rudi, before we do that, can we talk about there are so many great questions on this list. What do filmmakers need to provide to festivals these days besides their film, A, and B, what are ways that filmmakers can present themselves as professional, and what are ways that are troublesome?
Excellent question. Absolutely fantastic question, because we get the does anybody read the cover letter question all the time?
All the time.
Or does the director's bio even matter? Or what other materials do you need? My answer to that is If I had walked into this room today in my pajamas and bunny slippers, you would have thought of me different, right? Presentation is a big thing. We have a saying, don't judge a book by its cover. The reason we have that saying is because people make snap judgments all the time. So I think it's better to, instead of hope that a programmer, suppresses their natural instincts to make a snap judgment, instead, why don't you just try to present yourself as professional as possible? That includes a poster, a trailer, an EPK, a cover letter, a director's bio, a synopsis, a website, a social media, and I'm looking around the room and blood is draining from everybody's faces right now. Because all of you are like, oh my God, I'm a student, chill out. I have to go to like Film LA to get permits, and then I have to arrange a truck to pick up equipment. How am I supposed to run social media and design a poster in the middle of doing all of that?
That's what I'm here for.
Take a deep breath.
Yes.
It is completely understandable that independent filmmakers don't necessarily have the resources to do all of these things. We understand that, or at least my fellow film festival executive directors should understand that because they see quite a lot of it. What I am saying is do as much as you can, as best as you can, and put your best foot forward. If that just means a poster, then do it. If that means you can do the whole 9 yards with the poster and the trailer and everything else, then do it. If that means you can get a friend to help you, pay them in a pack of beer, I don't care, right? Get somebody else to give you a little bit of assistance. Absolutely, you should try to, because presentation, especially in this industry, is everything.
It's really important.
All of our lives, I promise I'll wrap this up in 2 seconds, all of our lives, since you were a baby to right now, you have had $100 million films marketing towards you, all right? So you subconsciously have a standard. You don't know it, but you do. So anytime something falls short of that standard, it feels amateur. Now, it's totally unfair to say your $500 short documentary needs to look like, $1 million Netflix doc. But my advice to you is do the best you can, get it as far up the road, and then let your story take it from there.
That is all really important material. And I feel like, so what we do in the film festival department is we prep you for all these different stages. And my work is in support of the work that the teachings of your producing instructors, your directing instructors, etc. But it is a long haul. A festival run is a long haul. Y'all, it can take 2 years.
Yes.
It can take 2.5 years. And so you kind of want to have your expectations that this is like your new big project. And there may be things that you don't even know that you need to do, that you're like, I'm done with my film, I'm just gonna start submitting it. And I'm like, hey, so this log line that got you greenlit is not a marketing log line.
Yeah, those are two different things.
Those are two different things. And the problem that we see a lot is that filmmakers will throw their log line into Film Freeway, and then festivals don't rewrite them. And so the log line that you used 2 years ago, 3 years ago in your former life is now on the internet, it's in program guides, and it's published. Not serving you. And so that's something that I think is really important. Another thing is that those photos that you put into Film Freeway, a lot of times filmmakers are like, I love my behind the scenes. And I'm like, I love your behind the scenes too, and they're gonna look great on Instagram. You know where they're not gonna look great? Film Freeway, because when your film gets picked up by a festival, they're not advertising the film based on the filmmaker behind a camera, like my friend right here right now, right? Like, that's a beautiful image. But what we need is a still photograph from your film.
Yes.
Right? So I have a special plea that people start taking still photos and just putting some time and effort in constructing still photos that you can then use down the road.
And to that point, let me share you a quick little story. In 2021, some friends and I got together. We decided we're going to make a short horror film over a weekend, right? And we shot in the middle of a blizzard, which was awesome because it looks so awesome on the screen. All right. Absolutely frigid cold the entire time. My poor actress is walking out there barefoot in the snow. But, you know, we do it for the art, right? In those conditions, in the dead of night, in the middle of the blizzard, we still set some time aside and took a bunch of stills. And guess where the poster and the banner and all the other key art and anything that we sent off to press in our EPK, it all came from the 2.5 minutes, literally that was it, 2.5 minutes of snap, 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 snap. Okay, good, we're good. That's where all that comes from. We all want to show on Instagram to our friends, look at me behind the camera, look at all the lights, isn't this so cool? That's great.
It is cool.
That's great. Build up your social audience doing that, absolutely. I'm not saying don't do it, but when it comes time to actually putting a program together for the film festival, putting stuff online and everything, we're looking for those stills. And if filmmakers don't have it, we have to pull it out of the film itself, and it's never as good. It's just, it doesn't work as well.
Yeah, it doesn't work as well. Okay, so we're going to start taking questions if people want to line up. And while we're waiting for our first brave human to ask a question, I'm going to ask this question. What are your pet peeves?
Oh. All right. I'm going to give you a pet peeve that can actually hurt you. Credits, the length of your credits.
Length of credits.
When it comes time to making the hard decisions of which films get in and which films we're rejecting, if I have 2 films, they're both 10 minutes long, but one of those films has 3 minutes of credits for some 30% of the runtime is credits. Guess which one gets thrown out? It's that one. And I don't know why, but filmmakers really love to go nuts with their credits. So just make your credits as short as possible.
I think short filmmakers, honestly,
features
30 to 45.
Features do it too. I've seen
yeah.
features where their credits are no joke, like 15 minutes, and I'm like, what are you? The
Hello,
Lord of the
Marvel.
Rings didn't have credits that long.
Yeah, and I really caution you against having your composer create a song for you that's going to run through the whole credits, because that becomes very painful down the road if you're asked to cut it and it's running too long. Now, if you do want to ask a question, we have this nice mic back here, so please go ahead. And we have our first contestant. Let's give them a round of applause.
I just want to say thank you first for coming out and giving us all your wisdom. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think my biggest issue has always been titles for my short films.
Yes.
So
Titles?
how important is like the title for a film festival?
Well, when you have 3 films called Love, it gets a little hard to track which one we're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm going to take my film festival director hat off, and I'm going to put my editor who's done a lot of marketing hat on and say titles are a marketing tool. They are a great mechanism to get people's attention, but they can also hurt you. So I did a film some years ago called The Suicide of Lillian Sellers. Can anybody guess what the problem of that title was?
Yes.
Right? So I actually think titles are quite important. To me, they are a marketing tool. They're something that absolutely stands up, grabs the audience's attention. A good title, literally I have seen people flip through books, not just at my festival, but at a bunch of festivals. What do you want to watch? This sounds good, and they base it entirely off of a title.
Well, usually I've found that type of situation is because the title itself raises a question for the audience.
Yes.
And so the title, in a way, becomes like the first scene of the film, like the opening shot of the film. You're like, what? This film, Spider? Why is it called Spider? Many of you have probably seen that film here. And then you're like, why would you name a movie Spider? I'll go watch that. And then it rolls out from there.
And a good title is also memorable. I mean, last year, the feature film that won Best Feature Film at our film festival was called Hundreds of Beavers. I am never going to forget that movie.
You won't forget that title.
The short film that won was called The Cowboy Pecan Pie. By the way, that was 30 minutes long, and it was a student film. So, can be done.
But was it concise?
It was extremely concise. There was probably a 40-minute cut of that movie at some point in time that probably didn't work, but the 30-minute cut was riveting. Nice. It truly was. Nice. So yes, I'm sorry that you have trouble with titles. Titles are a very difficult thing. I literally finished
I do too.
I was editing a documentary for the last year and a half, and it was only in the last week of it that we came up with a title for it. Yeah. So they're hard.
They're hard.
They're very hard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the information. That's really helpful. So I have a question that me and Crickett, I have a thesis film that I'm considering, I am putting in film festivals, but me and Crickett had a discussion about duration. It's 45 minutes long, 45 and a half, and I actually now have a cut that's 50 minutes long because some film festivals had that requirement.
What was it, 50? 50?
50.
Okay, so feature doc. Okay.
Yeah, it's a feature documentary. The original is 45 and a half minutes, and I now have a cut that's 50 minutes and 30 seconds. But we talked about the difficulty of getting films of that duration in, and just if there's, from your experience, any more advice. And also, do film festivals ever get back to filmmakers and say, hey, we really like this, but can you modify this? Can you cut this out because we want to put it in? Or is it, this is it, we either take it or not?
All right, so first question is, at 45 minutes, what should you do with it? Because it is a difficult length. There is a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. You could potentially submit that as a pilot for a docuseries. There are more and more festivals that are opening up for pilots for television shows because television is obviously huge, right? And film festivals, frankly, have been slow to adapt. And I am pointing at myself here. We do not have a pilots thing, but we would accept a 45-minute film because our limit is 40 minutes. But it would be considered feature doc. You would want to start looking at film festivals that have pilots. You would want to start looking at film festivals that do have that shorter limit, and hopefully that you could get programmed with maybe another 45-minute doc, and it's almost like a double feature inside of a 90-minute block. We have done that at our festival a couple of times as well, so we have two short features that we essentially stick together. Your next question was, do film festivals ever reach back to the filmmaker and tell them recut the thing? I have wanted to do that about 20,000 times. Unfortunately, I can't, because then I would not have time to do anything else with my day. There are some festivals that will do it, especially if they have fallen in love with a project. They might reach out. It is difficult for two reasons. One, when you submit, I have to judge the film that it is, not the film that it could potentially be. Because if I judge films by what they could be, that would not be fair to the other films that I'm judging what they are. And two,
important note real quick. Yeah. This is why I strongly recommend against submitting works in progress.
Don't submit works in progress.
I think that's setting people up for failure.
To anybody who can hear my voice in this room or Zoom or anywhere else.
And our Zoom audience.
Don't. You don't have a second opportunity to make a first impression. That's all there is to it. Don't submit a work in progress. But some festivals will, if they particularly like the project or believe in it. There is a small concern, though, because sometimes filmmakers don't have the money or resources to go back and re-edit. And then also, you're still kind of taking a gamble, because they may go back and re-edit, and then it may not be a good film anymore. So a lot of festivals tend to avoid doing something like that. This may be the worst advice in the world to give to student filmmakers who don't have any money, but is there a world where you have multiple edits of your film? Is there a world where you have a 15-minute version of your doc? Like, take the best moments out of it and turn that into a doc. Is there a world where you have that 15-minute, a 30-minute, and an hour version? Because that might also be a particular strategy at some
I
festivals.
think there's also a 90-minute version to be made.
Really?
Yeah.
And
So
if there's a 90-minute
Yeah.
version, go big, man. Go for it. But again, it's got to be concise. So as long as it's flowing, you're good to go. Festivals love feature docs.
multiple versions to?
I wouldn't submit multiple versions to the same festival. I would, again, be very targeted about what you do. So if there's one festival, if you have a feature version of your doc, and you really want to play the feature there, then you do that. But if there's another festival that tends to do more shorts with their docs, then I'd lean into that. Documentaries kind of get a little touchy with film festivals. A lot of film festivals have a documentary block, and then they forget they have a documentary block. We do not. We have an ongoing partnership with the International Documentary Association. We love our docs. We really push our docs very hard. Not every festival does. So be very careful, because some festivals really treat docs as an afterthought, whereas other festivals, the docs are almost more important than the narrative films. So it's all back to every festival is different. So
do your research.
Give it a
Yes,
go.
yes.
Thank
And there
you.
are also
course.
dedicated documentary
Yes, of course.
festivals. So thank you. All right, next question.
Okay, so I got a quick question and a real question. When you say about credits, you're talking about end credits, right?
yes.
Is that applied to only to short films or like for all films?
I mean,
All
I won't share my opinion on credits in general. I don't like them. If you ever go to a film festival, you just clock how many minutes of your life you spend watching names go across the screen.
Yeah, I could thank the MCU for that.
Yeah. So my advice to all filmmakers, if you are doing a short film, do not have opening credits. There's no need for it. Make your end credits as short as possible, ideally under a minute. For features, sometimes there are legal requirements that you have to have opening credits, and I get that. So if you don't have those requirements, also skip the opening credits. And for features, try to keep your credits under 3 minutes.
Okay. So here's my real question. As a screenwriter, am I under the same litigation as a filmmaker in terms of how long my script should be compared to in the same way how filmmakers should actually make their film in a certain length for it to be submitted?
I want to give the caveat that we don't do screenplays at our festival, and I don't review them. However, I have talked with many people who do, and yes. Now, please keep in mind this is coming secondhand. It's not just from me, but they tend to think a script needs to be 90 pages and no more is kind of what they're looking for. And again, it comes down to how concise it is. Again, we don't review screenplays, so you might, I'm sorry, I'm not giving you the best advice right now, but the general idea that I would give you is yes, under the same constraints that filmmakers have, screenwriters have it as well. So if you're doing a pilot, absolutely it needs to fit that formula. Your act breaks need to be landing on a certain page. If it's not, they're gonna flag it. If you're doing a feature, they want it to be 90 pages, no more than 100. Anything beyond that, they're like, unless it's phenomenal, they don't care.
Well, at first it used to be 90 minutes, but then they actually brought it up to like 100 minutes. Sometimes they actually like give like a little bit of leeway for those, like maybe to like 110, 112, but that's even kind of pushing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
But if you're submitting to a screenplay competition, just like a film festival in this regard, I would see what has won in the past, what their lengths are, what their style and their format is, and that will give you a better impression of what that particular screenplay competition is looking for.
And also, just to be clear, every festival is different. And
your
so,
research. My
do
God.
your research. Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
All right.
Hello, my name is Mrinal and I am a writer-director. Firstly, thank you so much for being here and giving us such amazing insight into film festivals. It really does help a lot. My question is about meeting potential investors at festivals. If you have a short that's being received really well and you attend all the networking events and stuff, and if somebody approaches you and says and asks what's next, where do you see this going? Do you have anything else which is in pre-production? What should you be ready with, and how do you sell yourself in the best way possible?
One of the most valuable things that you can do as creatives, and you will start to learn this especially as you leave school and go off and start working in the professional world, is have multiple irons in the fire at any given point. You need to have multiple projects that you're trying to get off the ground at any given point, because out of every 10 projects, only one of them really latches on, and that's the one that gets made. There is a producer that I work for, and this gentleman was the vice president of production at Nickelodeon for 10 years. So pretty much everything that Nickelodeon produced for a decade, he was the EP on it. His fingerprints are on it. And I have watched him behind the scenes, without giving too much stuff. He usually has 6 or 7 different projects going simultaneously, and only ever one of them gets any kind of traction. So if somebody approaches you and loves your film, obviously be as charming and delightful as you possibly can be, endear yourself to them. But if they're asking you what's next, better have something loaded up in the gun.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I would say. If you don't, that's perfectly fine. You can respond with, I am currently looking for projects, or you will start to learn the fine art of lying without lying. Just, oh, I'm still focused on the end of this one before I start my next one. Oh, what's the next one? We're still hashing it out, right? But if they are interested in pursuing a project with you, obviously vet the person. Like every single person who walks up to you and starts flattering you, like don't just believe them. All right, that's just good life advice, right? But after you vet the person, if you find them to be legitimate and everything, absolutely start working on the project with them. I have gotten multiple projects as an editor, as a producer, and as a director because of film festivals. In the middle of 2020, I got to go out to Atlanta and I got to direct a pilot because of somebody that I met at a film festival. So
I want to also throw out there 2 things. One, remember that when you're submitting a film to festivals, there's usually a 6 to 9 month lag between when you submit and when you start getting into those festivals. And so that's a really important time frame for you to,
tee up other
write
projects.
that other draft, revise that one thing, develop another treatment, what have you. It's very important that you do have projects. The other thing is, smaller regional festivals are really great spaces for new and emerging filmmakers who are not established yet, because that's where you're more likely to meet the people who are more likely to invest in your projects at this time, right? Like going to Sundance with your first film and you don't know anyone is not going to be as helpful as going to smaller festivals, meeting more people, making your projects, finishing your screenplays, and then being
building
able
your audience and
to,
so on and so forth.
being able to take advantage. So,
Thank you.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All right, next.
Hi, thank you so much for coming out. So my question is, so I do not have a film I don't have any film that is ready for film festivals. However, I really do want to start to go to festivals. However, I don't have a lot of money to buy tickets or to come as just a spectator. And I know that we kind of said that there's volunteering work, but how can students with less income can try to get their way into the door into film?
Send me an email tomorrow and I'll connect you with Holly Shorts and Dances with Films that are both local.
Yes.
And really important LA festivals.
And
Yeah.
just shout out to Dances with Films.
Shout out to
that's such a great
Dances.
festival.
Shout out to Holly Shorts and New Filmmakers LA. Hey y'all.
So your instinct is correct to volunteer. at film festivals. If you can't make a movie to get into a film festival, buy a ticket. If you can't buy a ticket, volunteer. If you can't volunteer, hide in the rafters like a bat the night before and then sneak in. Okay.
Let's delete that in the edit.
Are you kidding me? That's the funniest thing I've said tonight. All right. But sincerely, your instinct is correct. Absolutely. Go and volunteer at film festivals because once again, not only if you're physically volunteering, then you'll get to meet a lot of filmmakers. If you are a programmer, you are going to get to see a lot of films. If you do both, great, best of both worlds. Obviously, a lot of film festivals are desperate for work, especially those that are volunteer-based. So the Wyoming International Film Festival is a volunteer-based film festival. Although we're a little limited on stuff, we only take alumni, actually. So in that regard, we're a little bit exclusive. However, most film festivals would appreciate the help.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Email me tomorrow. I love it.
And by the way, I have absolutely met volunteers at film festivals who were filmmakers and then checked out their movies, and then that sparks a relationship. So without a doubt, it's a great way in.
It's totally worth it.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm James Valdez, cinematography MFA here. And my question is dealing with films with premiere statuses and stuff like that. You know, like if someone finishes a film, they're like, oh, it's my student film, I'm done. I just finished editing it. I have everything ready. And where do I go? What film festivals do I start with, right? And I just wanted to ask your perspective and your your feedback, both like as a filmmaker and also as a festival programmer, the importance of like premiere status. Does it matter? Does it, stuff like just with the
Premiere status is a question we get all the time. The short answer to that is it depends on the festival because every festival is different. Could have been a little louder, but we got the idea.
All right, fine.
So for feature films, absolutely. Feature films, feature docs, premiere status is key. The complete opposite end of the spectrum, music videos, dance videos, nobody cares. So short films and doc shorts kind of fall somewhere in the middle. Is it important? Is it not? Every festival has their own rules, and that's why you do need to do your research. You need to look into it. So just to give you an example, we brought up Dances with Films just a moment ago. They have an LA premiere requirement. So if you were to screen your film publicly somewhere else in LA, and then you want to go to Dances, you're immediately disqualified. You're not getting into that festival because you've already blown your premiere requirement. Okay, so of the million other considerations that you guys have to juggle as filmmakers, the other thing is when you develop your strategy, you want to also try to, if you can, keep in mind what order those film festivals start screening so you don't blow one premiere status at one festival and then blow your chances of getting into a different festival. For shorts and doc shorts, most festivals typically only have a city or regional premiere requirement. So the Wyoming International Film Festival has a Wyoming premiere, which is something my team and I are working on because Cody, Wyoming is 6 hours away, but Fort Collins, Colorado is 45 minutes away. If you screen in Fort Collins, which is closer, you're fine. But if you screen 6 hours away, you're not fine. So it's actually something my team is considering instead of Wyoming, doing just a
region,
like a 3-hour kind of a distance sort of a thing. But a lot of film festivals will have a premiere requirement. So when you do your research, when you start submitting to it, consider when they play because you don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul.
Got it.
Is what you want.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to make a big push for anyone who's interested in that topic. Last summer, I did a webinar with our alumni who I coached to Sundance in 2023.
Yes.
And we addressed this issue in great detail. It is true that for short films, the premiere issues are not as strong as people think. And people are often shocked to hear that Sundance does not have a premiere requirement at all for short films. So there's no need for anyone to submit to Sundance first. That's just not a requirement. And I actually have seen time and again that when people are chasing big premieres, that there's a high failure rate. And so in my department, we practice a diverse festival strategy from the jump, with the goal to get your film into festivals. And often we see that when filmmakers get into regional festivals, niche festivals, representational festivals, that often getting into those festivals will pump the film to a higher level.
Absolutely.
So it's not really for features. It is a top-down strategy. For shorts, I don't practice that at all, and I find it's a more successful thing. But watch this one. It's called The Road to Sundance, and it's up on our the NYFA YouTube channel. And we go into great detail about that.
Absolutely, you can use one festival and your premiere there to angle to get into another festival. In 2018, at a feature film, we premiered in Kansas City, and that got us into Dances with Films here in LA, which then got us into Twin Cities, and at the time, they were screening Green Book. So here's my $20,000 feature film playing right next to Mahershala Ali. So.
That's not shabby.
Yeah, not bad, not at all. So you can use a screening at one festival to help you push to get into another festival. And absolutely, festivals talk to each other.
They do, which is why you need to be polite to everybody, y'all.
I mean,
don't get yourself blackballed, okay?
Yeah, I mean, everybody talks. Like you guys are students.
Y'all are talking about us right now.
Yeah, when you go to class tomorrow and your classmates are like, "Hey, how's the film festival guy?" You're gonna say he was the most charming, handsome man you've ever met, right? All right. Agents talk, companies talk, film festivals talk, everybody talks. Yeah, programmers talk. So absolutely, it helps to start building that buzz even within behind closed doors, because that does help you into other festivals. Sorry, I was talking a lot. Your turn.
I think this is going to be our last question. Oh, wait, and then we have one more.
We got one more.
Oh, wait, are you running? No, you're leaving. Bye. Thanks for coming. Okay. Wait, 3 more questions. 4 more. All right, we got to do this fast.
All right.
Do this fast.
Okay, I won't ramble.
All right, we're going to do this fast. Go for it.
Oh, no pressure. Okay. Hi. Well, first I want to say thank you for coming, and it was very nice learning from you. My question might seem a little different. I realized that like some of the things that you do within like film or anything kind of puts you in a certain bubble sometimes.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to build myself up, build my name as a YouTube like content creator and like putting films on there. And also I wanted to know, like, say I was to get my films like high ratings on YouTube, would I be able to put it in film festivals, and would it kind of limit me as a real filmmaker?
So a lot of film festivals will exclude films that are released online. We do. So if a film has been released online, it's disqualified. So for people who are interested in releasing their films online, particularly YouTube content creators and other content creators, I actually think film festivals are just kind of the springboard that you can use to have a big release online. You go to a bunch of film festivals, you get yourself some awards or laurels or whatever, you create buzz around the film, all right, while you're also building your audience online. You're showing the behind the scenes of, hey, I'm going to this film festival, I'm representing my film here, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. You're constantly creating content online that your audience can follow your film festival journey, and they're just sitting there, they're like, when is the film coming out? When is the film coming out? And then after your film festival run, all the people who watched your film, they're live in the theater and they're engaged in everything. You ask them to follow your socials. And then you do your whole release. Hey, we're dropping the film in 10 days. We're dropping it in 5 days. Tomorrow it's coming out. Not only are you engaging your online audience with all of the content that you've had going to film festivals, but you are now engaging the people who are there at the film festival. So when you release it, you're not just throwing it on YouTube and hoping people are going to watch it. You actually have an army of people doing the push for you, and they're actually sharing the film. I know some festival directors will get a little hoity-toity if you're doing YouTube stuff. It doesn't really count as real filmmaking. That's not true. David F. Sandberg made an incredible career for himself releasing a film off on YouTube. And now he's doing like Annabelle creation and stuff like that. So, but the point of the matter is, I think film festivals, the press and the buzz and the audience that you can just be the beginning of all that momentum that you use to push for your big online release. And along the way, if you are a content creator, going to festivals, that's great content. There you go.
Thank you so much.
All right, so go ahead.
Hi, I'm Dre Carr, screenwriting student. Thank you so much for coming and just reminding us of the relevancy of the festivals. There's a film festival I would love to attend, and for the past 3 years I've been going, but I've noticed that the attendance has just been dwindling. And I was wondering if that's been festival-wide since COVID.
Yeah.
And do you think that in-person festivals are here to stay, or if they're going away?
Sundance itself is having a hard time getting people in. I think this is indicative of a larger trend of audience attendance at films is also kind of decreasing, especially since COVID. I think it's a more complicated issue than just pointing at COVID. But our attendance in Wyoming is insane. In 2018, I was not the executive director in 2018, but in 2018 we had 250 people in the audience. Last year we had 2,000. So we're growing, actually. So I don't think it's industry-wide for film festivals. I do think some festivals are struggling and others aren't. It's a more complicated issue than just COVID, people aren't going to the movies, whatever. I don't say lose hope, everybody. Plays have been around since the Greeks and the Chinese, and people still go to plays, right? So, in fact, if you want to buy a ticket to those, they get more expensive if you start going to like Broadway and stuff like that. So people still have a need to be in person and have that physical be around other people. It's literally in our DNA. We are pack animals after all. So yes, some festivals have trouble with it. Other festivals aren't.
Thank you.
It's a nuance thing.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Chirag. I'm a cinematography student. So I'm making a film currently, and it's in a different language. It's in a language which I've come from. So I just had a question: where how open are film festivals in US to accepting films from a foreign language? Because I did get your, like when you told about the demographic related festivals, I did visit a few of them, but I just feel that they're too centric to their own country and language. That after a point of time, the release, the hype, everything just dies down. And it does not get that status or that hype which other bigger festivals get. So I just wanted to know how international film festivals work for that.
Well, certainly international film festivals don't care. I mean, we take films from everywhere on earth, and we don't really care what language it's in. Our only requirement is that it has English subtitles. And you might think that a state like Wyoming, where it's a bunch of cowboys, have no interest in them foreign films, but that's actually very much not the case at all. Our audience loves them because it's an opportunity to see things they don't normally get to see. So I think there's actually quite a big market for it, but depends on the festival.
Do your research.
So some film festivals, absolutely, to your point, if they are based in a certain demographic or an ethnicity or a language or a culture or something like that, yeah, they're not going to be that open to outside films coming in. You know, there are rare circumstances. I gave you the example of my composer being from Poland, so I got into the Polish Film Festival, but there weren't a lot of English-speaking films in that festival, I'll just put it that way. So in your particular case, obviously, as I said earlier, you have some advantage sending your stuff back home because you're still considered a local filmmaker there, and if you're making it in your native language, that's wonderful. But for film festivals that have the word international in their name, when you do your research, hold their feet to the fire and make sure they're actually living up to that. Because a lot of them will say international, and they'll have 3 films from Canada and call it good. No, you don't want to submit to those ones. You want to submit to the film festivals that have films from Mongolia and Sweden and Australia and India and China and South Africa and Abuja or wherever. There you go.
So how does the distribution of those films work? Like, is there a market for the distribution of those films, or it's better we stick with like English films for a start of the career?
Well, when it comes to distribution inside of the United States...
Wait, one quick question. Are you talking about the film festival world or getting picked up for distribution on like streamers
Yeah,
and
like
movie
so from
theaters?
film festivals, if I can get a financer, so how does that work? Like, is there a market for foreign films for those type of stuff? Because it's my first film, so I don't want to have like a calling card like that where people are not interested to watch, and then I'm just having that calling card. I'm telling that, oh, I made this film, when no one's watching it.
I mean, I'd rather have something than nothing, right? You know? And the fact is that you can appeal to multiple demographics. You know, you can make a film in the United States that appeals to Americans. You can go back home, you can make a film there. You can make a film about someone from your country here, or vice versa, this country back home. You actually have kind of an advantage. Use it. You know, I'm from Wyoming, the least populated state in this country, by the way. There's like 6 of us, all right? Okay? So there is an advantage for me to go back home and make films there, because it's a lot easier to get things done versus LA, but then I can still bring it into LA. Now granted, this is all within the same country, but that's a small microcosm of an advantage that you have. You're standing on both sides of the bridge, bro. Go for it.
I would love to have a longer conversation with you about this. And one of the things that I would say to you and to everyone is that film festivals and the top film festivals in the world are looking for new voices.
Yes,
and
very
new
much so.
visions. They're not looking for people to make films exactly the same way we've seen films in the past. And that's why student categories are so important, because so many festivals want to find that next generation of filmmakers, and they're at film school, right? So I would actually say lean into your voice, lean into your identity, and go deep into that and come up with something fresh and unique. And the world will respond.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. All right, last
Last
question.
one.
Last question.
Hi.
My favorite color? Thank you.
Oh.
I've been waiting for it.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I'm Priscilla. I'm an MFA in filmmaking student. Thanks for all the information. It was really helpful. So 3 quick questions. I wanted to ask, would you submit twice to the same film festival in 2 consecutive years, even if you know, like, that the film festival is very, very appropriate for your film?
The same film?
The same film festival.
Same film to the same film festival 2 years in a row.
I'm on both sides here, because I have done that as a filmmaker and I have seen that as a festival director, and the answer is no.
No.
Okay, I thought so, but I had to be like clear, because I was, and then what's the range of film I know that this varies for every person, but like, what's like more or less the range of film festivals that you would submit? I don't know, maybe 10.
Oh, how many films?
How
you would,
many?
or how many festivals you would submit to?
Great question.
That's a great one. Obviously, that's going to be different for everybody because of finances. Film festivals get expensive when you start submitting to a bunch of them. As many as you need to achieve your goal, and as few as possible. So if it takes you 20 film festivals to achieve whatever your particular specific goal is, then submit to 20 festivals, but don't submit to 21. I actually recommend filmmakers to submit to as few film festivals as possible for a couple reasons. You might have to adapt your strategy as you go. Imagine if you sat down to a chessboard and you had to just like write out your first 5 moves without seeing what the other person was doing. That would be nuts. You wouldn't want to do that. You're going to lose the game if you do that. But filmmakers will just like sit down and submit to 30 festivals all at once. I actually say submit to only a few. see if you're getting in, if you're not, if you're getting any feedback, whatever. You can adjust your strategy from there and then submit to the next batch and then submit to the next batch. I think that's actually a much more prudent way of doing it. It saves money, it saves time, and it allows you to adjust your tactic in the middle of your festival run. I mentioned I had a feature film in 2018. I submitted it, got into a couple festivals, I got some feedback on it. I went, I recut the film, I cut 10 minutes out of it, then I got into a whole bunch of film festivals after that. And thank goodness I didn't submit to 100 festivals all at once. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to adjust.
And you'd be out of money.
Yeah, and you'd be out of money.
Yeah. Well, and this is why it's so important to have a strategy and goals and do the research
Yes.
from the beginning so that you're not wasting your money.
Yes.
That's no fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was very, very helpful.
Rudi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
Can
you
we
very
give
much
him
for
a
having
round
me.
of applause, please? Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you so much for being here, for being so generous with your time. Everybody who is a NYFA student, those who are watching on Zoom at home, I'm Crickett Rumley. I'm the director of the Film Festival Department. My job is to help y'all get your films into festivals. So come see me. Come to my events. Take it seriously. I am here to support you. If you are already working with me, respond to my emails. I love you. Rudi, do you want to have a last word of advice?
Well, guys, first off, this was a lot of fun. It's great to come back to the school I graduated from, talk about the thing I love the most, which is film festivals. You guys were awesome, so thank you all very much. My one last thing that I want to leave you all with is it really, truly is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You will get rejected. It's going to happen. I've been rejected from, I had to look it up this morning, so I had the number. I have been rejected from 415 film festivals, okay?
Yay!
Yay! I know. I also edit for Marvel, so how does that work? All right? But the fact of the matter is, you will get rejected. Sometimes it can feel just like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, but guys, you need to understand that most films are not rejected because of their quality or story or anything like that. The simple fact is, when there's 5,000 films submitted to a festival and they can only screen 100 of them, most are going to get rejected. That's all there is to it. It's not a reflection on you as a filmmaker or you as an artist, and it is no indication that you should just give it all up. In fact, you should go back and you should make another movie and you should keep going.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, so keep your chins up.
Absolutely. That's a great way to end. Thank you.